After a turbulent 2.5 years, my ex-P said, "We need a break, but it feels like a breakup." Our toxic past battles with love and anxiety erupted into chaos, leaving me wondering, is it truly over? Now he wants to meet for a last goodbye. What will happen next? So I need help with how to approach this. As the title indicates, I am a 22-year-old female and my former partner, a 22-year-old male, and I have ended our relationship after 2.5 years. However, the situation is much more complicated than that, and it appears to remain so. Warning, this will be lengthy. To provide some context, the relationship was toxic for both of us. He had only one relationship prior to us, during which his ex abused and manipulated him throughout their childhood into dating her for over 3 years, until he finally mustered the courage to break up with her. She was already speaking to someone else when he ended their relationship, allowing her to finally let him go. I have dated 5 people before him, and most of those relationships were abusive and traumatic. One requiring a school-sanctioned restraining order. Yes, that is a thing, and no, it did not help. We met at his workplace and began communicating just a month after he broke up with his ex. He had moved on from her long before their breakup and started dating not long after. During our happier moments, it was as everyone in wonderful relationships describes it, as easy as breathing and as perfect as life can be. It embodied what I imagine true love and soulmate connections are depicted as in every book and movie. However, I wouldn't be sharing this with a title like that if everything were just good times. I am certain some of you can infer the issues that arose from the context I provided. It began small. I would have a panic attack. I have severe anxiety tied to the ex for whom I needed a restraining order, and he would panic because he didn't know how to assist me. His ex had conditioned him to expect to be yelled at and given the cold shoulder if he did not help her adequately, so I would feel pressured to calm myself down in order to calm him down. However, I tend to engage in pain-stimming behaviors, picking at my skin, stabbing my nails into my fingers and palms, biting and tearing at my lips, and grounding myself often involved inflicting some form of pain. This triggered him as his ex would use self-harm to manipulate him into staying with her, which made him more upset. Consequently, I could not truly calm down from my panic attack because he was also in distress. This resulted in me needing complete space from him and almost fleeing his house, only for him to chase me outside to prevent me from leaving, even though he had to be up in 4 hours. Most of our problems, while still complicated in their own right, followed this pattern. Something would happen with me related to past traumas. He would try to help but be triggered by his past. The situation would escalate because neither of us could self-regulate or step back to calm ourselves, and it would result in an unresolved issue. Eventually, the negative experiences began to outweigh the positive, and we could not continue living this way. I suggested we take a step back from our relationship, texting less and not spending every weekend together as we had been. He refused, believing it would not be beneficial. The night after my suggestion, he broke up with me. This occurred at the end of February. Now this is where things become complicated. He did not actually break up with me. When he sent me home from his house stating that he could not continue in our relationship as it had been, he meant it as an indefinite no-contact break, contingent on how I heal. We defined our break to resume communication in July for our anniversary, with the intention of starting over, which would give us a little over 4 months apart, a couple of days after the initial situation. At that time, both of us believed that I was the problem in the relationship, so I found a therapist who has been a tremendous help throughout this process. A couple of weeks into the break, my therapist remarked that a 5-month break with no contact is, in my paraphrasing because she is a professional and I am not, a literally insane concept and probably will not work as P intends, since 5 months is a significant amount of time for anything to happen. I decided to text him to arrange a call to discuss this matter, as it needed to be addressed promptly, but the conversation did not go as I had hoped. He confessed that he is not ready for a relationship at this moment and that he does not know if he will be by July as we had planned. He also admitted he does not know what he wants right now. When I asked if he would inform me of his feelings in a timely manner, he was vague in his response. I expressed that I still love him and suggested that we should not be so certain during an uncertain time and allow ourselves time, but he was adamant about letting go of July. After our call, he unfollowed me on social media and removed our anniversary date from his bio, which he had kept there the entire time, and yes, I had been checking. I understandably took this as a breakup because there was no other way to interpret it, and I felt there was no closure to the situation. My therapist recommended that I write out my feelings as if it were a letter to him to gain some closure and express myself, as I struggle with processing emotions adequately. One letter turned into many, and I came to realize that I was not the sole issue in the relationship, as he was indeed correct about not being ready for a relationship. He had not been prepared for our entire time together, and many of my anxieties that affected us deeply and the conflicts we faced could have been prevented if he had been ready. I would express my discomfort regarding someone's interaction with him or a situation, and it would escalate into an argument because I was letting my trust issues get the better of me, and I was being unreasonable and controlling of his actions, mirroring how his ex had behaved. He would also say that I was preventing him from hanging out or gaming with friends because he felt guilty about it and never asked me, even though I reassured him every time he did ask that it was fine. Those were just two of several examples, and while I am not providing specific context for anonymity, they represent the most significant and consistent issues throughout our relationship that contributed to its toxicity. Ultimately, I wrote one more letter intended for him, expressing my perspective on our relationship now that I had taken a step back to reflect. I hoped he would understand my viewpoint and seek therapy because he arguably needs it more than I do. I still requested the opportunity to retry our relationship as we had discussed and asked that he not hesitate to contact me for anything, even trivial matters, because I still love him deeply, so sue me. That was around mid-March, around the 16th, and a mutual friend, R, graciously agreed to deliver the letter to him for me so I would not have to see him. I submitted that letter for my closure, and although I asked for a response to understand his perspective, I was not particularly hopeful as R works with him and hinted that P had complained about me reaching out. R provided me with P's letter on the Tuesday following, March 24th. However, it was dated, he is a nerd like that, for the 19th because he was not prepared to give it to me until a few days before R delivered it when we hung out on the 24th. It was a beautifully written letter wherein he acknowledged that he sees my perspective and apologized for placing the blame for the break on me. He expressed that he misses me just as deeply and frequently as I miss him, that he does want to try again in July as we intended, but it may not be on the exact day we had agreed due to a trip. He concluded by calling me his love, a term he had not used since before all of this began. He clarified that this has always been a break, regardless of any signs I interpreted from him, and he expressed appreciation for my letter and for everything I had previously written to him. We shared a mutual love for music and would sing our favorite songs together on drives. I mentioned missing that aspect in my letter, and he ended his letter by saying that we will sing together again. After reading it, I was an emotional wreck and sobbed every time I revisited it, unable to stop myself from rereading the sentiments of hope and love I had missed so intensely. Now we arrive at more recent events, when on the 28th he requested to talk in person. R advised me to keep an open mind going into the conversation, as my partner and I made a promise early in our relationship to inform each other if we changed our minds regarding the break. This was why I suspected that was the topic he wanted to discuss. However, R was rooting for us, having learned the contents of P's letter. Unfortunately, I was correct in my suspicions. He came to my house to discuss breaking up. He expressed that he keeps making sacrifices for me and our relationship and wants to focus on doing things for himself. The example he provided was something I interpret as an act of love when your love language is gift-giving, like his is. He mentioned that he went for a walk intending to clear his mind, but upon seeing my Instagram post joking about marrying whoever bought a particular plushie I had coveted, he spent the walk searching for the plushie to buy and send to me. He began the conversation firmly resolved to break up and move on because he recognizes that he is not ready for a relationship and wishes to prioritize his own needs instead of mine or our relationship. However, as I continued to advocate for giving it another chance, he became visibly emotional and started to cry. He allowed me to wipe away his tears as I had done before and to hold him. He eventually embraced me in return, and it took every ounce of strength within me to remain composed as he clung to me so tightly as if he never wanted to let go. He needed me to be strong for him, just as he had been for me countless times throughout our relationship, and he deserved my strength now that I had regained it. He confessed he is uncertain whether ending things permanently is the right decision, expressing fear that he might never find someone who shares his interests as profoundly as I do, or someone who understands him as I do, yet he still does not know what he wants. I reassured him that we do not need this to be a final goodbye, as he intended for this conversation to be, and even if he is not ready for July, we could still try again when he feels healed and prepared. A part of the reason we agreed to July was because we had concert tickets for the beginning of August, which we wanted to attend together, and we envisioned it as a road trip. When we planned to reconnect in July, it was to allow us time to coordinate where and when we would embark on the trip. He proposed either that I buy his ticket or he buy mine, as we would not be attending together under this context. I mentioned I would need to consider it, as it is an artist we both love and I must find someone else to accompany me. I must admit, I do not believe I know anyone who even knows or likes the artist enough to attend a concert in another state with me, and I wanted to keep my ticket as a means of giving myself another opportunity to reconnect with him in the future. He shared that he can only envision retrying our relationship as a relapse into the patterns we experienced previously, since he does not know how he would fare in another relationship, even with the therapy he plans to pursue. He expressed a desire not to lead me on under the pretense of a break when he is unsure when we could realistically reestablish a relationship. I told him to hold on, that we would try again when we are ready, and that things would not be the same as they were before. He followed me again on Instagram, and his workplace is a location I frequented even before our relationship, so I would not be too distant from him when he decides to reach out. We concluded our conversation unwilling to let go, exchanging lingering touches reminiscent of how we used to part when I would return home after spending time together. He drove away from my neighborhood while I collapsed on the path to my house, sobbing uncontrollably and feeling as I had when everything first began to unravel. I texted him about the items we exchanged as they held significance for us. My bed is covered in plushies from him, and he responded that he only wanted the shirt that was his and wished to keep everything else. I packed up the shirt, a hat he gave me before we started dating since I no longer wear hats, some gifts I had intended for him for July, and another letter summarized since I obviously do not write concisely, expressing my belief that we are the right people who simply met at the wrong time and that we will try again when the timing aligns. R kindly offered to deliver the box of P's belongings to him since they worked together that evening. It was also an excuse to give me a hug since R is a sweetheart and has been my greatest support throughout this. P must have opened the box and read the note I left for him immediately after his shift ended because he texted me at 2 a.m. asking if he could return the items I wanted in person. Honestly, I felt inclined to refuse, but I am very weak for him, so I consented. I have been contemplating whether this is a good idea even now as I type this, nearly 12 hours after agreeing to see him again. I decided to inquire why he wanted to return my belongings in person when R had already agreed to bring them back to me. P explained that he wanted one final goodbye before we part ways, and I questioned why he continues to view this as a farewell. He said it was because we would not see each other frequently moving forward, and he does not know when we would meet again, to which I countered that this was not a reason to treat this as a goodbye, but rather as a see you later. He expressed that he would prefer that interpretation. We continued to message for 3 hours, during which he expressed that his feelings for me remain unchanged and that he agrees it feels like we are the right people at the wrong time. I apologized for the way things unfolded, and he replied with his own remorse, wishing we were both ready at this moment. We bid each other good night for the first time in over a month, and I finally managed to sleep longer than just a few hours. Well, after all of this, the day has finally arrived where I am composing this account. I had intended to transfer him the concert tickets, but the website I purchased them from will not permit that and is only offering to sell them. I am not a particularly spiritual person, I use tarot cards, but I have never delved deeply into that realm or felt compelled to, but I do believe in fate and that things happen for a reason. I texted him about this situation and conveyed that I view it as a sign for us to attend the concert together as we originally planned, but that we should refrain from making any decisions at this moment. I suggested we wait until July, as we intended, to discuss how to proceed with the tickets. My reasoning is that since he has been so indecisive about his needs and feelings during this past month of limited contact, making a decision now would likely lead to an argument neither of us wants. I believe that meeting up after such an extended absence will truly reflect our feelings for one another more than just exchanging texts. He agreed and expressed that he still wishes to return my belongings. Now, dear readers who have stayed with me through this narrative, I find myself at a crossroads regarding where to proceed from here. I know that the love I have for P is deeply embedded in my heart, as I have not lost any of my feelings for him throughout this ordeal. I love him as much as I did before everything began, even leading up to all the negativity that overshadowed our positive experiences. I believe that P loves me just as deeply, and he also desires this relationship to work as much as I do. My tarot deck advises me to stop planning and to go with the flow, a sentiment echoed by R and another friend of mine. Others I have consulted, however, suggest that I am still young and should not fixate on P but instead move on to someone else. This may stem from the fact that R and my other friend know both me and P more intimately than those who do not, as we have opened up to them separately about our feelings over the past month. Therefore, it is likely that others do not see the connection that R and my other friend perceive. I am uncertain, so I turn to the somewhat biased and impartial internet for a space to share my thoughts, possibly seeking advice from those who have made it through this and may see something I cannot. I do have a therapy session scheduled for after P visits, but it is 2 days later since that is when my therapist is available, and I inquired after an earlier opening. I asked, haha. Before you question me, yes, this is all genuine, and yes, all the dates I have provided are accurate. I know it seems insane how much has transpired in a month and things are still evolving. I reckon my therapist may need a therapist after processing all that I need to discuss, as we have primarily focused on the events as they unfolded and have not yet had the chance to delve into the deeper issues. Story 2. My dream love turned into a family affair. I was cheating on Brit with Alex, her sister, when I discovered Brit's allergic reaction to my semen in Alex. I can't believe I'm in this mess, I thought, paralyzed between love and betrayal. How do I untangle this? This is a burner account for obvious reasons, and I am using obviously not real names. Here is the long version, scroll down for the short one. I, a 28-year-old male, met Brit, a 29-year-old female, and I have never felt about her the way I have felt about anyone else. It feels like this contrived movie love where she enhances every aspect of my life. She quickly became my best friend. I had a 2-year relationship with another girl previously, and I do not think I ever felt anything close to this for her. I truly love Brit and would do anything for her. Brit has a sister who is 11 and a half months older than her. They are very different from each other and do not even resemble one another much. Brit is slim, blonde, and a bit quieter. Alex is very athletic, has dark hair, and is confident. Brit and Alex are very close. Their parents have failed them in significant ways. I suspect their father abused their mother. They no longer communicate with him at all. Their mother has a drinking problem and until recently blamed everyone else for everything wrong in her life. For most of their lives, it was really just the two of them. They attended the same university, lived together, hung out together constantly, and talked or texted almost every day. I am an only child and always wanted a sibling, so the fact that Brit came with a close sibling with whom I get along well felt like a dream come true. One additional important point to note is that Brit has several severe allergies. She is allergic to certain foods and has a hypersensitivity to semen. I believe it is actually the fluid, not the sperm, but I do not know much about this. Because of her allergy, she has not had a good relationship with sex or with men in the past. She always has to use a condom, even for oral and manual stimulation. Our sex life is fairly decent despite this. We are careful and we have only had minor issues. However, I have heard about some significant challenges she has faced in the past. Apparently, many men are inconsiderate and intentionally ejaculate on her or remove the condom and do not clean themselves afterward. For Brit and me, sex is very passionate, but she is more reserved and does not express what she likes or what turns her on. She enjoys romance before sex and a lot of kissing. She is not interested in trying anything really new. So fast forward to a few months ago. We were at her sister's place hanging out with a few friends and we ended up playing Truth or Dare. I do not recall whose idea it was, but I believe it was Alex's. There were many dares involving kissing and everyone was quite inebriated, so it was all in good fun. At one point, Alex was dared to kiss me. She immediately got up, as if she had been waiting for this moment, pressed her hand on my genitals, sat on my lap, and thrust her tongue into my mouth. It was one of the hottest experiences I have ever had. I became aroused immediately, and she certainly felt my erection and squeezed a bit, almost as if to say, "Hello, I know you enjoy this, and I know you have wanted this." Alex then seemed to encourage Brit and me to drink a lot for the rest of the night. It ended up just being the three of us, and typically Brit and I would crash on Alex's couch. However, Brit was particularly intoxicated, and Alex put her to bed in her room. I was on the couch when Alex emerged from her room wearing only a t-shirt. She mounted me, and it was incredibly hot. I was very drunk, but to my surprise, I managed to stay aroused. Alex is very attractive, and I have certainly admired her a number of times, perhaps even dreamt about it, but I never would have made a move. Clearly, Alex had figured things out and decided to take the initiative. The next day, everyone acted as if nothing had happened, and I thought that was the end of it. I was sorely mistaken. This was only the beginning. Alex would appear at our home when Brit was not there. She has a key. She would whisper things in my ear like 10 p.m. my place, and I would show up to find that she had planned these incredibly exciting activities that left me astounded. She was so dominant and provocative that I could not resist her. She experimented with various kinks on me, and I was like a puppy dog excited to see her, allowing her to do anything she wanted to me. She would make me perform acts on her, do things to me, or insert objects into me, not always my favorite, but the way she approached it made me indifferent. We never established a safe word, but somehow she seemed to know when to stop or when she had gone a bit too far. Her favorite thing was to pin my hands down and sit on my face while I made her climax with my tongue. Honestly, I genuinely enjoyed it as well. I want to clarify that I could and should have declined her advances after that first night, but she possessed an irresistible, sexy confidence. She never sent me any messages about our intimate encounters, so there was no proof. She told me, and at times threatened me, that Brit must never find out about us repeatedly. We did not talk about much during our meetings. I believe this was our mutual way of ensuring we did not jeopardize anything with Brit. 2 weeks ago, I mentioned that this was incredible, but I was uncertain how it would work with Brit, and that there needed to be a conclusion to it. I expressed this because I felt this situation was starting to affect my relationship with Brit. When I was home and suspected that Alex might come over, I would find myself working with a significant erection, just waiting and longing for her to walk through the door. My mind was filled with thoughts of what she might do to me that time, and when it did not happen and Brit came home instead, I was so turned on that I was all over her. I never pressured Brit for sex, but I felt like I needed to have intercourse with her rather than wanting to. I started to contemplate marrying Brit, knowing that both situations could not coexist. When I first brought it up, Alex did not say much. The second time, she seemed to quietly agree. like a child who had taken a toy from a friend and recognized their wrongdoing but still did not want to return it. Yesterday, Alex came over in the afternoon. I cannot say it was like any other encounter because almost none of our sessions are similar. Alex usually has a particular idea in her mind of what she wants, and I simply let her take the lead. She has done some truly wild things to me that I had never heard of, but yesterday was somewhat more standard, primarily consisting of a painful yet pleasurable oral experience followed by me finishing inside her. No condom, this is crucial. We sometimes use one, but not always. She is on birth control, but still you cannot be too cautious. The expression "do not commit a crime while committing a crime" comes to mind. Britt was going out after work with friends, but then ended up at her sister's. I was out with some friends watching the tournament when I received an urgent call from Britt asking me to bring her EpiPen from her house to Alex's place. She was having a reaction and worried it might worsen. Britt typically carries an EpiPen since her food allergies can cause her throat to constrict, but I was more worried than anything and did not fully focus on this irregularity. She knew I was at the bar nearby watching the game and that Alex lives very close to us, so it made sense for her to call me. I arrived at Alex's place and saw that Britt's face from her chin to the tip of her nose was covered in hives. It was most pronounced around her mouth, resembling the areas that might be covered in bodily fluids if someone was seated on your face. I glanced from Britt to Alex, my mind racing. Alex shot me a look that seemed to convey, "If you say anything, I will slit your throat right now." I felt frozen for what seemed like far too long, and clearly it was too long as Britt began to console me, saying she was going to be all right and was so thankful that I left my friends so quickly to help her. She rambled on and on with many compliments, while Alex kept agreeing with her and attempted to get me to relax on the couch and finish watching the game. I sat there watching the rest of the Purdue game, with my mind overwhelmed by conflicting thoughts that I could not process effectively. Based on both of their reactions, I am nearly certain that Britt's allergic reaction is to the semen that was in Alex. This means that Alex has been engaging in intimate relations with her sister in the same ways that I have, which is disturbing enough on its own, but escalates to a level of disturbing that I am struggling to comprehend. I also suddenly find myself questioning whether they are actually sisters. Perhaps they are half-sisters or were simply raised in the same household. Given the dysfunction in their family and some of the stories I have heard, anything is truly possible with their parents. Whether they are sisters or not does not significantly change anything, but I feel a need to know. If I confront Britt about her relationship with Alex, I stand to gain nothing. All I would be doing is criticizing her for engaging in the exact same behavior I have been participating in. If I tell Britt about my relationship with Alex, Alex may very well try to murder me. It would break Britt's heart, and I would likely lose her and ruin her relationship with Alex, which, despite its abnormality, I do not want to cause harm to Britt over under any circumstances. If I just pretend that nothing ever occurred and stop seeing Alex, I feel as though I am not being truthful, and I will always have the suspicion that whenever they are together, they might be engaging in sexual relations. I do not believe I can be in a relationship under those circumstances. Additionally, it implies that both Alex and Britt are bisexual, not heterosexual, correct? I feel compelled to seek answers regarding this, but I am not entirely certain why. My final option is the one I dislike the most, yet it seems may be the necessary course of action. I could end things with Britt without disclosing any of this and just walk away from her life. I fear losing her. She improves my life. She has made me happier than I have ever been as an adult. I struggle to envision my life without her. Is there a way to continue this relationship? Summary. I have been with my girlfriend for about 17 months, and I have been unfaithful with her sister for the last 2 to 3 months. I was close to ending things with her sister and aimed to salvage our relationship when I discovered last night that she is also sleeping with her sister. I had been planning to propose to her, but now I honestly do not know what to do. Story 3. My wife of 20 years, my best friend, is hiding a dark secret. "I love him," she texted another man while intoxicated. "After multiple affairs, I'm left in shock, questioning if I'll ever trust her again. I'd kill myself if you left," she sobbed. "Can I really stay for the kids?" Let me begin by expressing that my wife, 49 years old, is my best friend and that I love her. However, her actions make me feel as though I am no longer in love with her. This is a long story, and I apologize for that. I have only shared a few details with my parents. My wife has significant unresolved trauma from a gang sexual assault at age 12, struggles with depression, and is a self-admitted alcoholic. This issue runs in her family and has intensified in recent years. She wishes to stop drinking, but that has not happened yet. She is adept at concealing her drinking from most people, although she has specific signs that reveal when it is occurring. This has become a point of conflict because she behaves like a completely different person once she begins drinking, and I generally confront her about it. She has driven while intoxicated and has experienced several minor car accidents, some of which occurred with our children in the car. Fortunately, she has not received a driving under the influence charge yet, but I would not be surprised when that call eventually comes. I have never been a heavy drinker, but I have essentially ceased drinking altogether to eliminate alcohol from our home. She buys wine when I am not around to support her habit. She has also faced challenges in her work and career. For a time, she earned a substantial salary and was the primary breadwinner in our household. After a significant conflict with her superiors, she was forced to choose a side, which took a huge emotional toll on her. She attempted to start fresh with the side she chose, but that did not pan out. Consequently, she found herself unemployed and immediately felt inferior in our relationship, despite my reassurances that we were financially and otherwise stable. Not long after that, almost 2 years ago now, I returned home late one night from a work trip to find her passed out on the couch. She had been particularly cautious with her phone at the time, which piqued my curiosity about what she was hiding. I checked her phone and discovered a sexting conversation with a coworker of mine, confirming my worst fears. They had been meeting up while I was away for work and even while I was at the gym. Based on the evidence, it had been ongoing for at least 3 months. I took pictures of everything I could find and saved them in case I needed proof. Perhaps the most distressing part of their exchange was a message where she stated she did not know what it was, but that she loved him. He clearly did not share the same feelings, or at least there was no reciprocation of that sentiment at the time. I was in shock and could not believe this was happening. I genuinely had no idea she was capable of such actions. Against my better judgment, I woke her up immediately to confront her. She was still intoxicated but broke down in tears. One of her initial replies was that she had secretly caught me looking at pornography one night previously and had later asked if I wanted to engage in sexual activity. She claimed that made her feel unattractive, despite the fact that I believed our intimate life was relatively average for a couple of our age. While I do occasionally watch pornography, I primarily do so out of boredom and do not rely on it to enhance our sexual relationship. She is aware of this and has watched along with me on occasion. As she began to sober up over the following days, she maintained that she was perpetually drunk during the time these meetups and sexting exchanges occurred. I believe her on this, as she truly becomes a different person when she drinks and her inhibitions are entirely removed. Although I was deeply hurt, I chose to stay because I could not bear the thought of upending our family life with 3 children, all teenagers or preteens at the time. I genuinely believed she might harm herself if I were to leave. So I remained. Then it happened. 4 months ago, I came home to find her passed out once more. My lack of trust compelled me to check her phone again, and sure enough, she was sexting with yet another coworker, reminiscing about their past encounters. This time, pictures and videos were included. I waited to process my emotions and then called my parents to share a few details and seek their advice. They did not direct me on what to do but offered their support, regardless of my decisions. I reached out to a recently divorced friend for a recommendation for an attorney. I called the attorney, but she did not answer. I left a message and never received a call back. Upon returning home after providing the information, I asked her how many men she had slept with since we married. She lied and admitted to only one man, genuinely unaware that she had been texting another man the night before. She was that intoxicated. When I inquired about the other individual by name, fear washed over her face and she realized that I knew. She shed more tears, claiming she had not seen him in person for years. It turns out that that affair occurred prior to the one I was aware of, and it was not a one-time incident. They had reportedly met several times, although she could not recall the specifics. The texting exchanged, I discovered, was an attempt to reignite the affair while she was drunk again. The man asked if he could come over to our house, and she told him he could not because I was returning home, which was true. I felt utterly numb from it all, enveloped in an overwhelming sense of shock and betrayal like never before. My trust was gone, reduced to nothing, which is how it feels now. The knowledge that this had occurred before the other affair did not make it any less painful, particularly because she deceived me, thinking there was no way I could have gathered evidence of it. Thankfully, her drunken persona is too reckless to take necessary precautions. Writing this out makes it seem painfully clear that I should just divorce her. Nonetheless, I find it challenging to relinquish what I have with her and our children. I genuinely do not believe the kids are aware of what has been happening, apart from her drinking. A divorce would undoubtedly cause significant disruption to our lives and those of our children. Although I would like to have full custody of the kids in that scenario to ensure their safety, my job requires substantial travel, which would necessitate some partial custody for her unless I could find a way to completely change my career. She continues to drink, although less so lately. She has begun therapy in an effort to demonstrate her commitment to addressing her trauma and alcoholism. When she is not drinking, she is my best friend, a caring partner, and a wonderful mother. When she drinks, she becomes combative and seems to care only about herself and her ego. In the end, I do not trust her and am uncertain if I ever will, as long as she continues to drink even infrequently. However, I would like to make it work for the sake of the children, at least for a few more years. I believe that if the attorney had returned my call, I would be in a different situation. However, the extra time has allowed me to reflect and determine what is best for myself and my family. If you're still reading, thank you for your time. I probably need therapy as I obviously cannot get this off my mind. I cannot stop visualizing her with these other men, and I desire revenge even though they were likely just using their instincts as most men do. However, I plan to inform their wives at some point, providing conclusive evidence of the affairs. They will not get away unscathed. That is all for now. I am unsure if I need advice or not. I am simply trying to express some of this. Thank you again for listening.